Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's Tom Foster on the World of Marketing, and I've got a very cool guest today, Joshua Lenon of Clio. Joshua, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Tom, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Dude, Clio is like the biggest thing since Microsoft these days, right? I mean, like Clio is like hitting the ground and running. And
we're not quite Microsoft size yet, but we're really fortunate to be one of the few unicorns, $1 billion valuation startups that's servicing the legal industry. So it's been quite a ride, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
I mean, I've been in the legal space for 20 years and you guys came out of nowhere for me. I'm like, boom, Clio's here. And then boom, Clio's here.
Yeah, it's been, like everybody says, we're an overnight success that took a decade plus to get there. We started in 2008, but one of the things that was very interesting was our founders, Jack Newton and Ryan Gavro, saw that close to 70% of the legal industry was being ignored. So if you were building software or services to help lawyers run their practices, you targeted the AmLaw 200, and that was it. And any firm below that size, which again is 70 to 80% of the marketplace, had to make do with either tools that weren't built with the legal industry in mind and their specific needs, or were incredibly overpriced for their size firm. It included having to buy servers. It included having to have like full-time IT technicians on staff. It included having to pay by the hour for support help, and purchasing your software in contracts that ran 3 to 5 years. And Jack and Ryan realized that with the rise of cloud computing, there was this new distribution channel that could help solo, small, and medium-sized law firms get better software, run their law firms better, help more people. And that's been our mission ever since 2008. But you're right, it just kind of took off. Once people realized that there was software built for them, suddenly Clio was everywhere. And that's kind of where I came in, actually. So, yeah.
I tell you what, I mean, I have a bunch of lawyer clients and they all, many of them use Clio and just like love it. And so it's great. And obviously, well, not obviously, but our system DSS connects with Clio and works very well with your software. That's great. So, but tell me a little bit for our audience about you, Joshua. You're a lawyer, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm a lawyer licensed in New York. I went to law school.
How did you get involved in Clio? Like, why aren't you out practicing law? How come you're in a software company?
So I graduated in 2008, right in time for the Great Recession, which was a real turning point in lawyer hiring. So there had actually been a trend, especially in bigger law firms, of reducing their hiring for a long time. But when the global recession hit, we suddenly saw that big law firms, just flat out canceled hiring. And that then rolled down into the medium-sized law firms that rolled down into smaller law firms. And so it was the worst time to graduate law school if you wanted to go to one of these bigger law firms. I had a very unusual experience in that I was a clerk at the Attorney General's office. They asked me to stay on, but I chose to go to Canada because of a very nice woman that I met that eventually became my significant other. Yeah. So that meant walking away from great job with the Attorney General and opening my own law firm. I was licensed in New York because it was close to Canada, and traveling back and forth from Rochester, New York to Toronto, Canada every weekend to spend time with my significant other.
Both great cities, Rochester,
both great cities.
Toronto, I love them both.
Yeah. And so in order to keep up with my burgeoning little immigration firm that I was trying to get off the ground, I looked for software to help me run it. I knew I needed help. And there was this little company formed out of Canada called Clio that had exactly what I needed. It was the ability to manage my case files, manage my contacts, manage my billing over the internet. And so I didn't have to have a law firm that I lugged with me back and forth. At the same time that I was doing that, I was also looking for new and innovative ways to network. And one of the things that I was trying out was this little microblogging site. You might have heard of it. It launched about that time, called Twitter. And I was an early adopter. I actually started making great connections with lawyers around the world. We started having conversations about how we were practicing law, what was happening when it came to legal education and how it had prepared us for some things, but not for others. And it was just the water cooler. But as a part of those conversations, I also started chatting with the software company that I was using, Clio, and getting software advice from the people on the other side of Twitter at Clio, but also giving feedback and channeling feedback from my own network. And eventually that led to me spending the day in Vancouver, Canada, where Clio's headquartered, chatting with them about their software, learning more about the company, and both of us realizing that we had a very similar mission, that the practice of law is hard, but it doesn't have to be this hard. So how can we go about making it better? And that's when they asked me to join full time. And ever since then, I've been helping Clio with legal scholarship and research into the practice of law. I've been helping them know about the unique compliance needs of lawyers and law firms as you build out software. And I've worked to help educate lawyers on what to expect from technology and how to approach it in a way that is both ethical and secure on behalf of them and their clients. And it's over 9 years now I've been doing that. It's been incredibly exciting.
Fantastic, man. Well, thank you for that. And I'm saying thank you on behalf of all the lawyers out there, because it is a great system. And, the Canadians know how to make software.
They do. It's
Something about it. It must be the water, the temperature. I don't know what it is, but the Canucks know how to make some software.
Yeah, there's actually a huge legal tech hub in Toronto, Canada. Of all of these companies just springing up and building great software for lawyers there.
Brilliant minds up there in the north. I'll tell you what, I was in the software business before I started this internet stuff. And that was my territory, is Canada. So I traveled all around Canada. I love it up there. I'm trying to get up there again. All right. So, but here's the big thing. You just came out with this legal trends report, right? Mm-hmm. Legal trends report for 2022.
Yep.
That you did with a bunch of your buddies over there. So, and this thing is available. I'm gonna show it here. They're gonna put I forgot it at home. Okay, but here it is. They're gonna put a graphic in for me.
We'll fix it in post.
Yep, we'll put a PDF. We'll link the PDF there for everybody. But everybody's got to read this. I mean, it's fantastic. So how did you compile the data for the legal trends report, Joshua?
Well, as I mentioned, Clio is a cloud-based service. And what's really interesting about that is the more people that use a cloud-based service, the more feedback you as a software producer get. And certain things like, if people are using a feature a lot. And while Clio has both some really strict technological and contractual limits on our ability to see our customers' data, we actually discovered that as tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of lawyers were using Clio, we started to see trends in how they worked, just in how they used Clio as software. And so an example I like to give is the fact that Clio lets you set billable hours, and you can set them in a variety of different ways. You can set them by person. Like, I'm a lawyer, I bill at this amount, my paralegal bills at a different amount. Or you can set it by matter, to where if I'm dealing with a family law matter, this is my billable rate. Whereas if I'm dealing with certain types of civil litigation, I have a different billable rate. And you can even set billable rates by client. I have a friend, I give them a discount. I have another friend, I bump it up a little bit. So there are lots of different ways that you can change those settings.
Clio can be used for any lawyer, right? No matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a blank slate that can be customized to any law firm.
It's fantastic. Yep.
And so with those variabilities, what we discovered is there's a bell curve. Whereas at one end, we can see somebody who's hypothetically billing $20 an hour. And then at the other end of that bell curve, there's somebody hypothetically billing $2,000 an hour. I couldn't tell you which firms. I can just see that that's the low end and this is the high end. And we know that because we need to make sure we're supporting both of those. And then there's this bell curve in the middle of billable rates. And so I could tell you what's exactly in the middle. What's the average hourly billable rate for small and medium sized law firms across North America by looking at that bell curve. And I can break it down even further. I can tell you what's the average billable hourly rate by close to 40 different practice areas that we've categorized in our legal trends report. I can tell you within those practice areas, what's the difference in those billable hourly rates between different states in the US. So where are lawyers charging more or less by billable hour based on this contributed data in Clio? Now, I describe it as contributed data because while it is part of our terms of service that we're granted license to publish this type of data, it's also only with the permission of our participating law firms. And there's a setting in Clio where they can actually opt out of this type of analysis and publication. So even with the strict contractual and technical limits on what I can see and research in Clio, you can still have complete control of your data and opt out even further if you want to from the limited amount that we publish in this legal trends report. So we've been doing this since 2016. What we found is that we have a very
helpful data. I mean, like, it's great stuff to be shared. You know, it's only making the software better, making lawyers run their practice better.
100%. But what we have found is a lot of the data actually raises more questions than answers. So since then, in addition to this anonymous aggregated data set of hundreds of thousands of lawyers, we've been looking at the data, figuring out what questions it raises, and supplementing that with surveys to lawyers across the United States. Our surveys are around 1,000 lawyers at a time. And we've also been surveying legal consumers, people who either have used a lawyer or want to use a lawyer, about what some of the questions the data is raising about their motivations and what's really driving them to turn to lawyers and law firms with their legal needs. And we've been publishing this annually ever since. You're going to hold up a PDF of the 2022 version, our most recent version. And we're really excited with some of the conclusions that we're coming to. Interestingly, not only do we have a unique data set, but because of how long we've been working on this now, we're really starting to do comparisons of changes over time in this report and show how things that seemed small back in 2017 are now huge. And even how lawyers have been responding on a month-to-month basis during the pandemic since March of 2020 are all things that we've been publishing and contributing for free to the entire legal industry.
What was the most surprising thing that you found?
In the 2022 Legal Trends Report, we really focused on a couple of different topics. The first was, what are the changing expectations for clients as it comes to law firms in 2022? And the biggest change we saw was in 2018, about 23% of legal consumers wanted some type of remote option as a part of their legal experience. That's now changed. Close to 80% of legal consumers believe that law firms should be offering remote options. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to utilize them in every instance, but it's definitely one of the things they look for as table stakes.
That's the world we're in today,
Yeah. And it goes across all generations. And so a majority of baby boomers felt that law firms should have remote options. And that was the smallest amount of people surveyed who felt that should be there. So you need to have video chat, online scheduling, client portals, the ability to pay bills online. All of these things are just expected now. So that was one of our very interesting findings, that it's gone from being a nice to have to a must have when legal consumers are looking at law firms.
So how does a lawyer
Mhm.
transition from, old school ways to this new remote way of dealing with clients? How do they do it?
I think that it's actually a lot easier than most lawyers realize. There are two things that work in our favor. The first is that clients already have this new online savvy. And so lawyers no longer have to worry about their clients looking at a newfangled way of having this type of service, because they get this type of service everywhere else. So the lawyer is no longer responsible for training
That's a
clients.
great point. Like
No.
they already come in knowing how to use Zoom or how to use
How to schedule an appointment online, right?
FaceTime.
Or
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
They know how to do it. And you're right. You said it a minute ago. They expect it. And,
Mhm.
and if it's almost like that they're offended if they're not, if they can't do it virtually.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And even when I use lawyers for personal needs, like getting a will, because we've grown our family, um, I looked for law firms where I could book an appointment online, where we could do consultations over the phone or over video, because I'm a busy guy, just like everybody listening to this podcast, right? And I
Yep.
don't necessarily have the time to take an hour off of work to drive someplace, pay for parking, get answers to a couple questions that I probably know the answers already, right? Um, but just double checking and making sure I've got that certainty. And now we're seeing lawyers are living up to that service, that client expectation, and really helping with that. And that's been very
Well,
exciting. So that's the first thing that lawyers have in their favor here. The second thing that lawyers have in their favor that a lot of other businesses don't is the way their finances are structured. Most lawyers operate on what's called in tax settings a pass-through business. So the income comes in and you're a solo or you're a partner, and the income kind of comes directly to you. And so you operate on an annual basis rather than like a quarterly basis or a 5-year plan. Lots of law firms have those, but in terms of a tax and spending approach, it's annual. And so it's very easy for a law firm to say, it's January or it's December, it's time for me to try something new in the next year. And so there's always a really good starting point for law firms because of the way they're structured financially, that they can make these investments and try something new. And given that clients are already in this space, it's a very easy shift from a financial perspective and from a client service perspective to get there.
It's on both those points. It's funny you brought it up. I just met with my estate planning lawyer because I had to update my trust.
Mhm.
And I had originally worked with him 13 years ago, and a lot has changed.
Yeah.
And we did a consult over Zoom. This was 2 weeks ago. We did a consult over Zoom. It was fantastic. The first time, obviously, I had to go drive in there, bring my wife, she's a teacher. We had to make arrangements, babysitters, go to the park, to Tyson's Corner, find parking. It was a mess. Elevator, blah, 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 blah. Boom. Zoom, we're instantly talking, and got it all done in an hour or so.
Yeah.
He followed up with a, here's everything that we did. And then here's the bill for $2,000. Boom.
Yeah.
And online payment. So it was all done. I mean, so guys, this is easy to do. And if you're not doing it, man, you better get on board. And certainly Clio can help you do that.
So we discovered the client expectations had changed. What we also discovered is a longitudinal study. So law firms that are growing over time, what is really kind of their secret sauce? And what we found is that they've been adopting some key technologies that help clients help themselves. and I've mentioned several of them already. The idea of some type of client intake service that's online. So clients can find your law firm, book an appointment, tell you a little bit about themselves, fill out questionnaires. That actually leads to a really big jump in business because clients are self-servicing. The next thing that really helped is the ability for clients to interact with the law firm online. So Clio's had what we call a client portal, and it's basically just a client-side version of Clio where they can see the things that you share with them. They can see their upcoming appointments. They can actually communicate with you via encrypted messages there. And it's a one-stop shop for them to work with their lawyers. And that's become really important to them. So much that we've actually built a version of Clio's mobile app strictly for clients. We call it Clio for Clients. And now, not only can lawyers communicate with their clients over their computers, but they now have a direct connection to the device that they're using all the time anyway. And then the last thing we found that really helps is the ability to pay online. It's such a huge reduction in collections efforts for these law firms, and actually an increase in revenue on top of that, that the time savings and increased revenue are just no-brainers. And when I say that this makes a big difference in a law firm, what we're able to quantify is that law firms that implement all three of these solutions on average earn about $40,000 more per lawyer per year.
Wow.
By implementing technologies that help the clients help themselves. If you're a solo lawyer, the impact's even greater. It's closer to 53,000
Wow.
in additional revenue per year.
And
so
none of this is hard to set up, gang. I mean,
it's built into a lot of the tools out there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like we do it on our websites, for our lawyers, pay online, all of it, scheduling, all of it, chat, questionnaires, all of that stuff. Okay, so I saw in the legal trends report that you found lawyers don't receive the training they need to run the business. And that is so true. That is like kind of the thing that we've been talking about for years and years and years. Lawyers go to law school, they be like you, and they become a lawyer, and they're like, now I'm a lawyer, and where is everybody?
Now I need to hang a shingle, and nobody's coming in my door.
Right.
I don't know what to charge, or what's going to be my overhead. What do I need to make on a monthly basis to cover that?
So especially if you're a solo practitioner, you got to be an entrepreneur. You've got to be a marketer. So what do you say to these guys?
Well, you're totally right. And we can quantify that again. Only 7% of lawyers that we surveyed, 7% said that law school adequately prepared them to run a law firm. Yep. It prepares them to be lawyers. It doesn't prepare them to run law firms. And that's a huge misstep. And they're looking for this type of help. So they're turning to their bar associations, and a ridiculously small percentage, like 23%, say that the bar has adequately provided resources to help them run their law firms. And now they're turning to places like this podcast, Clio, to figure out what really is the best way to run their law firm. And so what we have found is there are 3 key metrics that we think law firms should pay attention to on a frequent basis. They are your utilization rate, your realization rate, and your collection rate. And if we break down each of these in terms of like an average workday, and we know that lawyers on average work about 8 hours a day. There are many, many days when they work more, but there are also some days where they fortunately get to work a little less, and it averages out to 8 hours. What we found in the legal trends report is over 5 of those hours are not spent practicing law. It's spent dealing with administrative tasks, dealing with IT issues, dealing with licensing concerns, the things.
Back up there. What, 5 hours?
5+ hours.
A day?
A day. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, the average lawyer is only billing about 2.2 to 2.3 hours a day. That's their legal work.
Wow. And that's mind blowing.
Yeah. And that's a huge cut in both
Yeah,
your productivity
totally.
as a lawyer, and your
No wonder,
revenue.
no wonder everybody's so stressed out and working, all hours, getting in trouble with their spouses because they're, at the office late or in their home office late and never coming to bed or never
Yeah.
hanging out with the kids.
I've lived that lifestyle, and it's quite frankly just no way to live. So in addition, right, to that 5 hours not being spent on legal work, then there's the next cut, the realization rate. And for some reason, we're able to see in Clio that lawyers bill about 2.3 hours a day, but then cut part of that limited amount of time off of their bills before they invoice their clients. So when we survey lawyers, there's a variety of different reasons for this. Most of the time, it's empathy for the client, right? They don't want to charge the client too much. And they feel like maybe a task feels like it took too long when they enter their billable time. And so they give themselves a haircut. And then what happens is they submit the bill to the client, and the client cuts it even more. And so their collection rate, which is the third metric, is yet another cut. So of this 8-hour day, you've got 5 hours where you're not doing legal work. Now you've got less than 2 hours that you're actually billing your client. And then the average lawyer is only getting paid for about 1.6 hours of their 8-hour day for working their heart out. And
That is insane.
Yeah.
So you go to law school, very prestigious, go to law school. You think you're going to make some bank like everybody else does, right? They told you to go to law school, blah, 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 blah.
Great path to middle-class success. Yeah.
Right. And here you are working your butt off, dealing with stuff that you weren't prepared for. And then, feeling bad about yourself and not charging enough.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like I tell this to people all the time, never discount, because as soon as you discount, that's kind of like a routine, they're going to ask for it over and over again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we see that actually with larger law firms. A survey that's not the Legal Trends Report, but the Altman-Weil Law Firms in Transition Survey tells us that close to 50% of some law firms' revenues are from discounted billable rates. I threw some air quotes up there for the audio only folks. And if over half of your revenue is from a discounted rate, it's no longer discounted. That's your rate. So stop giving yourselves haircuts.
Incredible.
Yeah. All right.
This is fascinating because this is based on true data, guys.
Absolutely. And before that, every survey told us by other organizations out there who surveyed these big law firms, every survey told us that those lawyers were billing 6 to 7 hours a day. And then we look at the greater legal industry, and that's just not the case. So in this 2022 Legal Trends Report, we looked at where lawyers felt comfortable with their firm's finances and where they thought they should be spending strategically to improve their bottom lines. So interestingly, while we looked at lawyers, law firms, and non-legal professionals who contribute to managing a firm's finance, and so managing partners, solo lawyers, firm managers of all different titles, all of them, we asked them their level of comfort with firm finances. 46% of that body actually felt only slightly comfortable or not comfortable at all with managing their firm's finances. And then when we asked that same group, do they think they're spending strategically? 80% said they are. So there's this gap between what they think they know and how comfortable they are in doing it. And that's that gap that I think is where services like the world of marketing can really help lawyers figure out what works and what excels. So we've looked at, especially since the change and rise in remote working, where do lawyers really expect to be getting the best bang for their buck when it comes to hiring and spending? And so we asked, like, what's a big expense in their law firm? That was our first question. And should it be a big expense? And for most of them, salary is their largest overhead. For lawyers and non-legal professionals, it is the bulk of a law firm's overhead. You spend your money paying people.
Sure.
Only after that do they then spend on office space, on other professional services, on marketing. Where are they really spending their money? And then we asked if they had an extra $5,000, where would they be spending that money? And what was interesting is they all almost universally said that they would spend it on tools to make their firms more efficient and marketing to help them get more clients. That's where they know they need the help. And when we look at that utilization rate, that cut of 5 hours out of their day, they're spending it on business development. They're spending it on managing their firm's finances. They're spending it on putting paper in the photocopier, right? These are all necessary things in a business, but that doesn't necessarily mean the lawyer is the best person to be doing these things. Right. So how can we find opportunities and efficiencies for these firms to take those necessary activities and outsource them to software, services, and people to help their firms excel?
100%. So I think you kind of already have said a lot of this, but what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see lawyers make running the business side of their firms?
They actually underinvest in getting their firms started on the right foot.
Yeah.
And that's actually a very common mistake for, I think, one laudable reason is they've got a client that needs help. And so they focus on the client. And that's great. That's actually where lawyers should be focusing.
Supposed to be doing, right.
Yeah. And when you act as an agent for another person, like lawyers do, there's both a professional obligation and a personal obligation that rises from that. I've never had a client that I didn't deeply care about. But you have to think about it in terms of sustainability. And this is the one thing that I think lawyers, when they don't get off on the right track, is they're so focused on helping that client, on getting through that first engagement, that they don't realize that they're creating missteps that will haunt them for periods to come after that. They don't have a place to store their files. They don't have a good way of communicating with their client. For example, we know so many lawyers who are using their personal cell phone to communicate with clients because that's what they had when they started their law firm. And if they had just taken an afternoon to research voice over IP phone services, they could communicate with that client using that same cell phone, but via an app that would keep their personal and their professional communication separate and make it easier for them to service more clients into the future. And so I think the biggest step right off the bat is they just don't invest in having that good foundation from which they can build the rest of their law firm.
They also don't have a good website. They don't have a good way to, when you talked about at the very beginning of the program, they're not set up for remote.
Yeah.
They're not set up for virtual.
And then when it comes time to build that client, they don't have a system to build that client.
Right.
Yeah. And so they're taking Post-it notes and napkins and spreadsheets and trying to create a bill in Microsoft Word when they could have had all of this centralized in one area and then let their client click a button and pay online.
So key takeaways and how to empower these guys. I think it's never too late. It's never too late.
That's true.
But, you got to set up these systems. You agree? I mean, as soon as you can, because otherwise you're just doing what you said. You're going to be doing 5.5 hours of this stuff that you don't know how to do. So get rid of doing that stuff that you don't know how to do, right?
I absolutely agree. So it's going to be a bit of a plug, but services like Clio, legal practice management, I think are the foundation for these law firms. And what's great about modern legal practice management software is you don't have to leave the tools you're already using to get their benefits. So the majority of lawyers use Microsoft Outlook for their email. That's great. We actually have a plugin that syncs with Microsoft Outlook. And so now your law firm's calendar appears in your Outlook. And you can then take those emails where the client sends you like a dozen attachments all at once, and you can just have those attachments be part of your document record, your client file in your practice management software. And so now it's no longer hidden on your desktop computer, right? But now your entire law firm can find those attachments, can find those documents, can work on behalf of your client. And there's this huge burst in things being accessible and things being efficient that come from plugging these tools together. And in fact, Clio actually integrates with close to 250 legal specific cloud-based tools, and via what's called an API bridge like Zapier, we plug into thousands of others. So if there is a tool that you use to run your law firm that you really like, chances are it plugs into modern software now, and you can create this cohesive, agile, mobile hub where you can practice law on your cell phone, you can practice law on your laptop, your employees can work from home when they need to, you can hire the best virtual paralegals out there throughout your jurisdiction without being limited, right, to who's within driving distance to your office. And suddenly you are more in control of your law firm than you've ever been in the past without having to do all of that hard, heavy lifting yourself. So it's such an exciting time to practice law, in part because of the availability of these tools, but also the changing nature of the practice of law is very exciting to me.
Well, plus people have coaches like you, and mentors like you that are helping them with software. I mean, we connect API with DSS to Clio seamlessly, so that information is traded, the marketing information, the list information is traded back and forth. Joshua, I cannot thank you enough for jumping on this podcast with me. I mean, guys, this has been fantastic. I cannot recommend Clio enough to anyone, no matter where you are in your journey as a lawyer. I mean, you've got to at least talk to them and find out how they can help you, because they can help you in ways that you have no idea. But Joshua, thank you so much for your time today and coming on my program. We got to help lawyers, right? We got to help them out.
Yeah, it shouldn't be this hard to practice law. It's always going to be hard, but it shouldn't be this hard.
Well, but it's like practicing law is hard enough, just doing the law part, right? So like what you guys do, what Clio does, and not only just the software, but the support, like this legal, like everything that we just talked about, the things that the knowledge that you have is so helpful that you're an idiot if you don't do it. I mean, truly.
There's a lot of stuff that we put out there, and it's a win-win. I'm going to be honest, right? When we help lawyers succeed, we as a business get to succeed as well. So I don't want everyone to think, oh, they're just entirely altruists. But I do really buy into our mission that there is a better legal experience out there, and we can all build it together.
Well, you said it at the top of the program. You're a lawyer yourself. You struggled yourself, and you found this software that's magic software, and it truly is magic software, folks. So, Joshua, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. It's great talking to you.
It's been great being a part of this. Thank you. If I could invite your lawyer listeners to swing by for the free tools and the free legal trends report that we provide. So it's CLIO.com/LTR, which is short for Legal Trends Report. There you can download all of our legal trends reports going back to 2016. And we have our benchmark rate calculator, where you can see what's the average billable rate by practice area for your state, both for lawyers and other billable professionals like paralegals. And so you can really see, is your firm exactly where you want it to be, rather than just relying on a couple people down the hall and hope they know what they're talking about. So this is all available for all of your listeners. Please come and take advantage of it. We want the legal industry to succeed.
Fantastic, brother. We'll put the link down here in the description right here. And everybody, if you enjoyed this program, you know what to do. Please like it and subscribe to the World of Marketing. Joshua, Lenon, thank you so much for your time, bro.
Thank you, Tom.